Welcome to the Game Week 19 video. So this week kicks off with Palace and Swansea, and no doubt on Boxing Day it was a big result for Swansea, 3 big points, and it's been a long time since Swansea have actually won a game, and I think the quicker they suit out their managerial position, the better it will be because it seems like the first 11 is not so rigid in the sense that sometimes Awage in strike, sometimes Gomez is in strike. And I think consistency is very important in the Premier League. Obviously, with 2 games in 3 days, there will be some rotation executed by all the teams. But I think that's something that is important because Swansea are definitely not out of the relegation scrap at the moment. But Rangel is actually a player I mentioned in my last video, and he got an assist, did pretty well, got one bonus. And Williams actually picked up his second free bonus in consecutive games. So, do I think Swansea will keep a clean sheet, however, against Palace away? Probably not. So, in terms of this game, look, Palace against Bournemouth was a 0-0. Both teams had chances, but I think at the end it's fair to say that the game kind of faded out. And for this particular game, look, Kabay looks like he's back. He was rested on the bench, so I expect him to be a big part. Wickham potentially might be back, but I wouldn't really gamble on actually Crystal Palace strikers. The players that I would look at in specific when it comes to Palace is people like Balassi, Kabaye, and maybe even the defenders, okay, along with the keeper who's valued at a very good price, around about £4 million, 4.1. Swansea, on the other hand, I think Jordan Away you might be a shout. I don't know what his value is creeping down back to the 7, but if he's playing in advanced positions, it's likely he'll get good chances. Along with the player Rangel, who I actually mentioned before, down to his value, I think he's definitely worth it. Now, the Everton and Stoke game, Everton last-ditch winner against Newcastle, and it was a bit fortuitous, but nothing fluky in terms of the overall game and how they actually approached it. I think Everton were very dangerous throughout the whole game, and their defenders, as usual, I would recommend Baines again. And I think one other thing that I think is worth mentioning is Jagielka is coming back in a few weeks' time. So if someone is eyeing Everton defenders, you might want to look far ahead for Jagielka, because I do think he will probably replace Funes Mori in the centre back positions. Also, against Newcastle, Martinez did do quite a bit of rotation, so I expect some players like Delifeo to come back on the first team. Stoke, what is it to say? A pretty much routine win for them at home against Manchester United, and it's to be expected. I think Stoke actually find it hard to beat teams near them in the Premier League at home, whereas against the so-called bigger teams, they somehow find it easier. And like I said with Bojan, another player recommended, and like I said, even the fact that he got booked, he did get the free BPS, is because they actually favour him in the BPS system. There is no doubt about that. So obviously that's a player I've been recommending, along with Arnautovic. I think, having watched the games now, obviously Shaqiri is a great player, but whether he is fantasy material, I wouldn't say so, unfortunately. I think you're better off investing your funds in people like Bojan, Arnautovic, and even Johnson, who I mentioned in the previous video. Those are the players I'll look for. Now, the game for Norwich and Villa. Norwich, I think, a great result for them against Manchester United, but kind of, reminded that, this is the Premier League and Spurs convincingly beat them. Villa, on the other hand, I think they really could have won that game against West Ham, and I think if they look back, they'll be a bit disappointed. Jordan Away is a player I've been mentioning before, and he got a goal and he got 3 bonus points. So I like to think I was vindicated in my recommendation with him. The one player who's actually interested to look at Villa is Veretout. He's a attacking midfielder, never afraid of taking a shot outside the box, and he surprisingly picked up 2 bonus. And whenever I looked at his BPS from the last few games, it's relatively quite high. So if you're going for a Villa defender around that price range, and he's a player around that region, obviously there are other players like Dele Alli, but he's also worth a shot because I do honestly think he's also favoured by the system. And Justin obviously picked up a vital assist, with the penalty, but I think he had some other great chances in the game. So I didn't actually give my prediction of the Everton and Stoke game. I think that's really too hard to call. So that's the reason why I didn't call it. For Palace and Swansea, I did say, I do think Palace will win the game. For Norwich and Villa, I actually think Villa can get something. I do see them doing something. I think they've picked up some draws, momentum, and I'm going to go for maybe either a 0-0 or a very surprising Villa win. Defensively, do have problems, and the goal they conceded against West Ham could have been avoided, and it was very late in the first half. But yeah, that's my prediction for the game. Watford and Spurs. Watford continuing, their run, and maybe should have lost against Chelsea, considering the fact that Chelsea had a last-minute penalty kick. Well, not a last minute, but had a penalty kick at the end of the game. But Watford have shown that their strike force can get them points in the game. Defensively got caught out and some rash defending by Barami, for instance, when he came on Hazard. But, the main thing I would say is Dini and Igalo are showing that they're not fluke and they're definitely Premier League standard. And their combinations causing problems to all the defences, I suspect, in the league. So, yeah, that's one thing that's worth noting for this game. Spurs, on the other hand, great win. But you really have to question. They're at the moment fourth, and we've seen this a lot. Spurs kind of elevate up the table around the top four, but can they sustain it? And I think this is a really big game. Watford away is not an easy game. They've been keeping clean sheets quite consistently at home, beating Liverpool, for instance, 3-0 very convincingly 2 weeks ago. So the way I see it, it's going to be a very tough game to call. In terms of Spurs players that I recommend, you have Kane, you have Dele Alli now, definitely. I think Eriksen's gone down because of the fact that he's not been getting points consistently. Is there any other players that I recommend? Alderweireld is favoured in the BPS system, but I think a lot of people have caught onto that, and that's why his value's gone up to 5.9. And obviously there is Walker, who actually I think is worth it at 5.1. I think Ben Davies and Rose will get interchanged, and maybe just a case that Rose has come back from injury, so he'll eventually replace Ben Davies, but he got a very impressive 11 points. But I'd probably maybe look at Walker possibly, at 5.1, who's probably a guaranteed bet in his position. So yeah, a really tough game to call, and it wouldn't surprise me a draw, but I think it's a really tough game to call. In terms of the West Brom Newcastle game, West Brom disappointing defeat against Swansea, very lackluster. I think taking off centre backs, I don't think there was actually very good, how do you say it, preparation for this game by Tony Pulis. Obviously he had suspensions and everything, but I think it was a total mess. Whereas for Newcastle, I think they'll be very disappointed the way they dropped the points against Everton. A point would have meant that they were out of the relegation zone, and now they're in it. So big game for both teams, and you probably have to say that just because of the fact that West Brom have got players coming back from suspension, you probably favour them now over Newcastle, because Newcastle hardly substitute players on the Saturday game, and it makes you think that some of these players might actually be tired. So I'm going to go for a West Brom win. In terms of the late kickoffs on Monday, that's Arsenal and Bournemouth. And yeah, despite Arsenal's defeat, and I think the first 3 goals is pretty much well summarised by Wenger, but there's no doubt that Arsenal were definitely not playing well in that game, and defensively very, very, ill-organised in my opinion. And Bournemouth, on the other hand, picked out a good draw, and they're continuing their good runs. But I still think Arsenal, they're definitely title contenders, and for me, at the moment, probably still might be just the favourites. You got to remember, if you looked at my last video, I did mention Arsenal haven't beaten Southampton for a long time, so that particular result didn't surprise me. But I'm going to go for an Arsenal win, and yeah, that's all I will say. In terms of player recommendations, same ones as before, and nothing more to add. In terms of Man United Chelsea, Costa did great. He scored 2 good goals. Willian providing. These are players I've mentioned before, but Costa obviously is not available for this game due to suspension, which is a problem, I think, as to why I think a lot of people in fantasy, like me, don't actually get him in. So, on the other hand, for Man United, there are problems in that team, and there's actually one player I mentioned a few weeks ago, and I still think he's still worth looking at, although no guarantees at the moment if he'll play this game, is Fellaini. I think Fellaini does get chances, and he actually got the best chance, I think, for Man United to get back in the game, which was saved by Butland, although it was a bit of a timid shot. So he's someone to look at, but I don't know what to say. I think this is a big game because Chelsea need to, you know, get off the ground. And I guess a draw isn't a bad result for Chelsea considering the situation. But this is a real must win, I would imagine, for Van Gaal. I think a draw, the fans might boo him. This might be curtains for Van Gaal. So a big game and probably worth watching. In terms of the last game on Monday night, that's going to be West Ham and Southampton. And look, West Ham, I think they kind of played with the goal that they got in the first half from Creswell. And defensively, you would have thought they could have shot a shot, but I think second half they really got caught out. Southampton, on the other hand, must be buzzing from the result. I think the players now that I recommend from both teams, look, I still think 4.3 Collins is worth a shout. Croswell provides that offensive, you know, how do you say it, appeal relative to the other West Ham defenders. But I think it's best to probably wait for Payet to come back before you actually go invest with West Ham offensive players. Southampton, on the other hand, Martinez worth 4.1. He's been back in the first team, scored, got a clean sheet, and whether he's going to play, there's no guarantees. But the one player I'd recommend is actually Ryan Bertrand. Took corners, and I think he might be worth it at the values that I think he's around about 5.1. He's someone I would actually look at, if anything. And maybe Long, but I think it's too early to say that Long will have a succession of games. There is reports that Pele's got a bit of a knee injury, but nothing confirmed. But this game wouldn't surprise me to draw, and I think this will probably be a good point for Southampton when you consider 4 points at 2 games. But it could be more and it could be less. In terms of the Tuesday night game, so that's Leicester, Man City, and technically two top teams in the table. And Leicester obviously have got a bit of a problem with apparently Vardy suffering with flu, Morris with tiredness. On the other hand, Man City, great win against Sunderland, but defensively still have a few issues. They still concede the odd goal, which is not good, but they rested some key players for that game. They took Yaya off after 1 hour, they rested Aguero, and you would have to say that I actually do think Man City can go here and win, and it would make a big statement. But I see there being goals, and I do see Man City conceding. Just because of that, I won't be surprised if it ended up being a score draw. But I would be very surprised if it was a 0-0. I think this game has got goals in it. And if anything, if Leicester try playing this game, by going defensive, I can only see Man City scoring two plus goals, honestly. So this game might mark the return of Sergio Aguero, and maybe even just make you guys think about him if he completes the 90 minutes for your fantasy teams. And the last game is Sunderland and Liverpool. Sunderland were absolutely hopeless against Man City, like they were against Chelsea, and pretty much it was pretty much the mimic performances. Identical performances in the sense that they kind of lost the game in the first 20-30 minutes, and then they got a consolation for Barini. So, on the other hand, Liverpool, big win against Leicester, but could have gone either way. Leicester had chances, and Liverpool definitely had the chance at the end with Benteke to seal the game off. I think players' recommendations, similar ones as again. Firmino, Benteke looks like he'll probably be in the first team with Origi picking up a knock, and you obviously have Henderson, Moreno, Saka picked up I think 3 bonus. So those are the players I'll look at, and I do think Liverpool will probably win this game. So yeah, that's all I will say in terms of this game week. If you haven't joined the Football Fantasy Fan League, please do join that, and good luck for the game week ahead.